Are you ready? I said, are you? We are the nation of domination. Evolution. Shock the system.
What's up, everybody? It's Sunday night at 6 o'clock. It's the Big Alboski, and it's Mean Mark Mest with me tonight. What's up, man?
Not much, man. How you been?
I'm fired up today. The weather's better. Wrestling shows are around the corner. People are getting vaccinated. Shit's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Guests are canceling on me, you know.
That's all right. That's why I'm here. So let's do this.
I love that you're here. We may or may not be graced with the presence of the professor somewhere around 6:30. That's neither here nor there. I'm waiting to hear from him. I did not send him a link, so he can't just pop on randomly because he might do that.
Right.
But guys, if you're watching Around the Turnbuckle tonight, I beg you to go to our YouTube channel on 2M1L Media, subscribe, share it with your friends. Keith and I are on every Saturday and Sunday night at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We interview local wrestlers and wrestlers now lately from around the globe. We had a couple guys, Mark, from Switzerland. It was great.
Nice.
To interview guys from Switzerland. And I am open to suggestions. If you are a pro wrestler or a friend of a pro wrestler, or if you know anybody that wants to come on Around the Turnbuckle and use this platform to tell their story, get themselves out there, that's why we are here. I can't stress that enough. Tonight, Mean Mark and I are going to have some fun debating the greatest wrestling factions of all time. We're talking the NWO. We're talking the Four Horsemen.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget.
We're talking Degeneration X. We're talking Evolution. We might even talk about the Blue World Order. All right. So that being said, let us know who you like in your comments. Who do you want us to talk about? The Undisputed Era nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Kind of split up right now, but I mean, lately, the past 3-4 years, they've dominated NXT.
Yes, they have.
Over in AEW, you got the Inner Circle and all that nonsense. MJF is starting his own thing called the Pinnacle, whatever. Good for him. But I mean, first, before we start this debate out, Mark, I want to pick your brain. You being who you are, I want to pick your brain as. What is your overall feel about factions in general in the wrestling business? Like where they've been, where they are now, are they important or are they not important?
I always believe that factions are very good for business just because you can take a group of guys that and not all the guys are, like individually they're okay. But if you have a group, they become better. Not saying that single-wise that they're not, but when you start putting guys together, perfect example, they were brought up, somebody that you haven't mentioned, which they're not around anymore because they've dispersed, but the Shield.
The Shield.
There you go. Like taking guys that were like, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. All of a sudden, you put these guys together, and holy crap, they're money.
What's up, David? Thanks for joining us from York, PA, my man.
You take guys like that all of a sudden together, and now they become dominant. They become a dominant force. But even though like they were doing good and were doing okay, all of a sudden put them together, and wham! All of a sudden you have an unforceable, a faction that's unstoppable. And they were for a while. They were dominating big time. So they're good. Nowadays, it's not so much. The business has changed, Yeah. But I still think it could be good if it's done right.
Right.
It's like anything. If it's done right, anything can happen. You know, like over in AEW, you're doing them factions. That's good because if you have another faction, the Wyatts when they were together, you know, you had Wyatt Shield. You know, you had the New Day. You know, you had them groups of 3 or 4 that could feed off each other and have great storylines. But if you only have one faction, and you don't have the babies or the heels or whoever it's going to be to combat them, then it's almost kind of like a dud. Why do you have them?
I kind of think that factions first got like used to draw money when it was the Freebirds and the Von Erichs.
Absolutely.
Right? Even though the Four Horsemen was also created around that time, the Freebirds and the Von Erichs drew money. All right. And you never knew you had the Freebirds were 3 guys, the Von Erichs were 3, but the whole family would sometimes get involved. So I mean those warring factions, quote unquote, really got things going. And then you had the Horsemen. And the Horsemen just ran roughshod over over NWA, over WCW, led by Ric Flair. And they've had different members come and go, but the Horsemen carried over for about 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the Monday Night Wars hit, and you had, all kinds of things going on. You had the Nation of Domination. You had Degeneration X in WWE to combat what was going on over in WCW, which was the NWO.
Yeah.
And so, everybody would tune into Monday Night Nitro to see what the NWO would do next. And the NWO just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger because guys were like, I want to join the NWO because I'm tired of getting beat up by the NWO.
Right. And see, the thing is, the NWO, which was good, but then they split to NWO Black and White, Wolfpack, and that's when you gotta, I think if you have a group, they need to be elite. When you start to add too many guys, it starts to draw it out, water it down. It's not as good, and that's why you need just a couple guys and that's it. But the thing is, here's the thing. NWO, they had competition. WWF, WCW. Competition, they made each other better. Because they're seeing what the one, you look at, one of WWE's doing this, they have DX and like the Nation and whatnot, all, and then, they have NWO and all that, but they're feeding off each other to get better.
Colonel John says the LWO, that's the Latino World Order.
Yep,
right?
Latino World Order. Yep. Yeah, they started, a bunch of them started to happen, but so they're good, but if they're overdone, then people lose interest.
Right. And I think if you're going to rank factions, all right, to me, in my mind, and I think it's going to be a matter of how old is the person that's debating this, right? Because if you started watching wrestling during the Attitude Era, then you're going to say NWO or DX. But if you started watching wrestling when I did, and maybe you did, then you might say the Four Horsemen.
Right.
But I think one of the most underrated factions of all time, if you really think about it, is Evolution. And they don't get as much recognition as they should. But if you think of the cast of characters in you had Flair, Triple H, Batista, Randy Orton.
Right.
Four of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. Exactly. Like that group, you think about it, when you put them together, unstoppable.
The Radicals, yes.
The Radicals were,
Terry Saturn, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko. I'm with it.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's, some didn't do very well. Like the Radicals were good there for a little bit, but then they kind of split up. But, again, it goes to proper storyline booking, what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. Years ago, nothing was ever left out. So you never knew, there was no internet. There was no, you could go read a magazine, but they were a couple months, behind.
Right.
But you didn't ever had spoilers. So you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So, you were wrestling fans like, okay, just watch what happens. Not go on the line going, oh, what's the spoiler? Who's going to do what this week? Why? That also kills it too, because when you have a faction destroy somebody, and especially a baby that somebody loves, the passion of feeling there is so much better if you doesn't know, you don't see it coming. Right. The element of surprise is like that raw emotion, like, oh my God, they just took him out on a stretcher, or they just did this, or they just did that. Now everybody's knowing what's going to happen because everybody's leaking everything out with the internet, and it's not as dramatic as it used to be. And that's the sad part, because it's not like it used to be.
You're right. You're right. Because like back in the day, I mean, you had all kinds of stuff going on, and then you had ECW get their own little twist on everything with the BWO, with the Blue World Order, and I was not them for that, because they were kind of making fun of the NWO.
Yeah,
because you had Big Stevie Cool and you had the blue guy.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a kind of a comedic thing, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed their little vignettes. I enjoyed when they came on. They were kind of goofy, but they did have they people remember them.
Yeah. So, and ones that we haven't really talked about at all, who actually, two of them aren't even here anymore, is, the triple threat. Bam Bam Bigelow, Chris Candido, the franchise Shane Douglas.
Yes.
Like they were a big part of ECW and what they did in there, and that's like, there's so many of them, but some last a long time. There's others that last maybe a year or two and they fade off for whatever reason. And, whether it's booking or it's just not getting over they want it to, there's many factors that play into it.
How do you feel Vince McMahon feels about factions? Because the narrative by most wrestling writers and observers in places like that think that for the most part, Vince is against them. All right. He only let it go in the Attitude Era because they were trying anything. All right. But like nowadays, I don't think he's all about a faction right now.
Well, you got to look at it from a business point now, too. Like, you're Vince McMahon. Like, there's a lot of people that don't like Vince for whatever reason. His booking is off key, or he just, he's out of touch. But he's a smart businessman. He always was. The question is, will it make him money? And if you put a faction together, who are you going to put together and make sure that they're going to work? It's no different than getting tag teams and putting them together. You're going to put guys together that may click very, very well. But then you'll get a tag team and they just can't click and they're just not over or whatever. Whose fault is that? Is it the guys? Is it the person putting them together? You could take guys that are, good single wrestlers, put them as a tag, and they just are good.
Thanks, David. Share it out, man. Get more debaters in here, man. Share it out on your Facebook.
You scratch your head, be like, this guy's a great wrestler, this guy's a great wrestler. You put them together, and boy, as a tag, they're not very good.
Right.
That's because some guys are singles guys, some guys are tag guys. And that's...
I think Vince missed the boat on one in the 80s, and that's the Heenan family. Because the Heenan family, even though they weren't technically a faction, they kind of were. Right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't see them interact with each other's matches. When you'd see Bobby the Brain out there with his tag teams or his single guys, they'd be out, they wouldn't all be together. And you never saw a thing where, like, one of them's getting, double teamed and you see the whole Heenan family pour out of the dressing room and attack. You never saw that. I think they could have done that.
Well, on the flip side of that is you use Bobby as the scapegoat or as the guy that helped get involved to get the heat instead of using another guy. Using the manager like you should, the manager's supposed to add to the match, add the heat, not take away. So if you bring another guy in, so it can work both ways. You can bring in another guy or two to help with whatever, but if the manager does it, now the heat's on the manager. Right. So now eventually when the babyface or the good guy finally gets a hold of the manager, Bobby always like, oh my God,
Yeah.
And Bobby could bump because he used to wrestle. So
he used to wrestle, yeah.
And then when he would get thrown in the ring and he was left alone with somebody, oh, please don't hurt me. And the crowd just ate it because, like, this guy screwed this guy over. So please hit this guy, beat him up, and he took them, wild bumps and stuff, and he threw him out of the ring. And the people just went crazy because the manager doing his job added so much heat to the match that the people just wanted to see him get his ass beat.
Right.
And nowadays you bring another guy in, why have a manager? The manager's guy is supposed to help cheat, win, whatever. He's the guy that's doing the dirty tactics. It's one thing if you're just, blatantly trying to take somebody out, bring all the guys you want. But the fact of the manager being there and you have to bring other guys, why is the manager there? I mean, I can understand if it was somebody like a JJ Dillon, who's, I'm not getting my hands dirty, I'll let somebody else. But guys like Bobby Heenan always got, Slick got involved, all those guys years ago. Jimmy Hart, those guys always got involved and then sometimes paid the price for it, which was the payoff.
To me,
yes.
When it was the manager time, they had stables. They didn't have factions. I think we should differentiate that because factions were a bunch of guys that got together, not necessarily had the same manager. They just got together. And a lot of times it helped launch their careers. In the case of the Shield, you mentioned earlier, in the case of the Shield, those three guys just from the Shield, from that year of domination with the Shield, their careers went through the roof after that.
Yeah, right.
And then with Evolution, it launched the careers of Batista and Randy Orton, and that was the point, right?
Well, and the point of bringing the young guys into a faction to help them grow, when you're around guys like Flair or Triple H and anybody that has that experience, I mean, that if you can't learn from that, knowledge tree, you don't belong in. And that's why, even though Randy's, third generation wrestler, Batista, was new, trying to learn. But when you take guys, say, hey, learn from this guy, talk to this guy, pick this guy's brains. Honestly, I tell guys now on shows, if there's a guy that's been in the business forever, there's a name, whatever, go talk to him, say hello, pick his brain, talk, sit under that knowledge tree, listen, talk to him, whatever he spews, you just take it in.
$1 Million Corporation. Do you remember the $1 Million Corporation?
Well, there was. I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was DiBiase. Didn't he have wasn't Bundy involved in that? Maybe.
Yeah, Bundy, IRS, Tatanka.
Yep.
Yeah.
And see, there were so many. Back then, there were so many. But I believe factions are a good thing if it's done right. It has to be. It's no different than, putting the title on somebody for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. You're trying to make money. You're trying to build a business. And I know a lot of people hate Vince for that. Even though you think, oh, that's a wrong thing to do, or the finisher got screwed, or it's just so hokey that they're like, wow, this is terrible. It may be terrible to people on the internet, but one, they're talking about it, so he's still in part of the limelight. Two, he's still making money off them guys because they're going to watch anyway. So Vince wins no matter what, and guys don't understand that. Unless you cancel a network and say, I'm not getting any pay-per-view, Vince wins. Right. Or if you watch Raw on Monday night or SmackDown on Thursday, Vince wins because he's getting your ratings. So, Vince has always done a lot of unpopular things, but when it comes down to business and making money, that's all Vince really knows. That's all he understands.
I picked Mark's brain yesterday. I do it every show he's on. Well, there you go. Purple John.
Yeah.
All right. So, what about the Undisputed Era? Do you think that the Undisputed Era was an idea pitched by them? Or do you think that Triple H came up with that, or Vince, or everybody got together and said, yeah, you guys are going to be the Undisputed Era? And their impact on NXT for the past, 2-3 years?
Well, it was helping to bring guys together that they were bringing in that maybe weren't really well known. Put them together, again, kind of like the Shield type of thing.
Right.
Guys that were known for doing stuff from ROH and other companies and stuff, and okay, we know who they are, but to the WWE crowd, to the NXT crowd, how well do they know them? You know, or if you're a big wrestling fan, you knew who these guys were.
Right.
But if you were more of a, not so much of an indie and you're just, you
Casual.
know, casual WWE or AEW or WCW or whatever, you didn't really know much about them. So you brought them together, formed the faction. All of a sudden, they're on the map. Now people are paying attention to who are these guys.
Right.
Okay, we know Adam Cole. You know, we know,
Bobby
Fish. The other one I wanted to has been around for a long time.
Roderick
Strong. Like you know them to an extent, but the other ones not so much. But when you put them all together, now they all stand out and they all get the same limelight. Even though Adam and maybe Roderick was more front runners on anything,
maybe.
But the two guys now they all brought them together as one.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're looking at everybody now, and again, it just builds, and it built them for a long time to get them over. So now if they destroy the Undisputed Era, looks like they're doing. Now all these
I don't know if they're going to destroy it. I think what they're going to do is reboot it. I think Adam's going to the main roster. And I think that the other guys are going to look to Roderick now or maybe search for a fourth guy.
Maybe.
They can do that. They can keep it going because it sells a lot of merch. Undisputed Era sells more merch than any other NXT thing going. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's so many ways that they can go with it. If they decide to take Cole up to up there, yeah, Roderick could take over. They could bring in another guy that maybe they're grooming or somebody that's there, to add to a fourth, and he takes it over.
That's what I think they should do. Whether they do it or not, who am I?
Well, again, it'll depend on who's available, who they want to bring in, and to help, again, elevate that guy to a standard to be like, okay, hey, we're going to bring you into here. So they're going to give him the ball, see how far he runs with it.
Now, I got to play devil's advocate for what they're doing over in AEW, because the thing of it is we talked about the goodness of factions. There can be a thing where there's too many of them, right? Don't you think?
Yeah.
And AEW seems like they have they have Taz's group, they have the Inner Circle, they have the Elite, they have the New Pinnacle, they have the Dark Order. It's like I think they have too many.
Yeah.
You think they're oversaturated with factions?
Yeah, because what happens is now, unless you follow it, and honestly, I haven't followed a lot of AEW. I mean, I kind of like watch what I can, but I'm not always up to date on a lot of stuff. I mean, I know about the faction and the new faction coming in and stuff.
Hi, Rachel. Rachel's from the UK.
Oh, wow. Well, hello, Rachel.
Hey, guys, can't stop because I'm at work, but figured I'd stop by and say hey. Rachel, I love that you're here because you're here saying hi to me and not Shango. Haha, I win.
But getting back to that is you kind of start saturating guys, and if you don't follow it really hard, you don't know who's with who. They don't stand out. All of a sudden, all these factions are kind of combining like this. Now, like, well, okay, who's this guy with? Who's that guy with? Oh, I think they're with. And all of a sudden, it gets very confusing. So I mean, like I said, I haven't watched it, so I don't know how crisp they're keeping it. But if they're just making factions for whatever reason, and it's
you're not in trouble. You're not.
But it can be oversaturated to the point where it gets confusing to the viewers, and they don't know, who's who anymore, and that can be just bad, because at that point, then when you get lost in the shuffle, you don't become relevant anymore. Only the people that will be relevant are the guys that have been established, guys like Jericho, guys like Taz, guys, the front runners of those factions. They're always going to stand out because they got that name behind them. Guys that don't have that name yet, they're like, who's that guy? Oh, I don't know. Well, it's somebody they're bringing up. What's his name? I don't know. Well, he's part of the faction. Which one?
Right.
It gets very confusing.
It gets confusing, and I agree. I agree with that completely. That I think that AEW, and I know you haven't been watching it, but I haven't either. But I heard about the MJF leaving the Inner Circle thing, so I watched the clip on YouTube, and what I saw was MJF has this new faction called the Pinnacle, and it's got Wardlow and FTR in it, and they're basically kind of making themselves out to be the new Horsemen kind of thing, and now they're attacking the Inner Circle, and it's confusing also because both factions are heels, so you kind of have like the Inner Circle are heels, and then the Pinnacle are going to be like super heels, I guess.
Well, I mean, unless they're going to try and turn the Inner Circle to baby faces, you know. Jericho's been a face before, so, and he's good at either or. He's good at what he does. So if he leads by example, they could turn into babies and then, you know, start a big thing, and, you know, they could do all sorts of things down the road. They could, well, they can't call it, but they could do Survivor Series type matches, you know, eliminations, you know, cage matches, you know, whatever, just to, you know, to end feuds and stuff. But, you know.
All right. So, in your opinion, all right, we're about halfway through. So we talked about as many factions as I figured we should talk about. I'm sure there's some honorable mentions out there. And guys, listen, if we left any out, let me know in the comments. I apologize. If I left out your favorite, I apologize. But over the years, we're talking, you know, we mentioned, in case you just joined us, we mentioned the Freebirds, the Von Erichs, the Four Horsemen, the NWO, DX, Evolution, Nation of Domination, the Shield, Undisputed Era, Inner Circle, Pinnacle, the Latino World Order, the Blue World Order. Like we mentioned as many as we possibly could think of just off the top of our heads. And I'm sure there were many out there that were. Oh, you mentioned Triple Threat too, also in there somewhere. But in your mind, if you had to pick the greatest faction in wrestling history is.
I guess you would have to ask the question, define greatest. Are you talking about longevity? Are you talking about titles? Are you talking about the success?
I think all of it. I think all of it. I think you have to sit and you have to rank. What did they have titles? Did they make an impact in the business? Do people remember them? Were they around long enough for people to remember them?
I mean, if you think about it, you know, the ones that were long enough, even though they've done different forms, would be the Horsemen.
Right.
You know, I mean, they were dominant for years. No matter who they brought in at different times, the Horsemen always stood out. You know, they were, you know, probably one of the longest ones. You know, so you want to talk about the greatest? I mean, you definitely have to talk about the Horsemen. You know, are you talking about money? I mean, then you got to look at maybe Degeneration X.
Right.
They were popular as hell, you know, when the war was going on. I mean, they would sell out arenas because of DX, you know, especially when you brought in all four of them. You know, we had the Road Dogg and Billy, and when you had, even like back then when they had China, when China was so far before, you know, like you know, they were very popular, you know. So, you know, is there the greatest?
Yeah.
It's opinionated, of course.
It's a debate. It's like saying who's the greatest quarterback of all time. It's a debate.
Right.
Anthony Joseph says, being a WWE fan in the 90s, I hate to say it, but the NWO was the greatest. It changed wrestling. It's hard to dispute that.
It changed it, yes, very much so. But
here's the but.
The question you have to ask yourself is, it changed wrestling, but did it make money for the company, which I'm sure it did because it was around, but at the same time, titles, money, and then his thing is, when it first started NWO, you know, how far are we talking? Because all of a sudden, remember, they started adding all these guys.
Right.
Then it split, you know. So if you're talking just the initial three, big impact, yes. Did they make a lot of money in titles? Not compared to the Horsemen, probably.
Yeah, I'm not going to acknowledge that Mongo was the best Horseman there, Joe, but thanks. No, I'm not. Sorry, Joe.
There's right. The debate on who is the greatest, you can debate about it for a lot of them, and everybody's going to have their preference on who they liked and who they didn't like.
Right.
I don't think there's a wrong answer. It's just that, some people like certain people more. Like, honestly, I really like the Shield. I'm not saying they were the greatest,
right?
But they impacted and they won a lot of titles and whatnot. All they were a big part of it, So does that mean that they're the greatest? No, but at the same time, they're in the discussion. DX.
One just popped in my head. One just popped into my head that we didn't talk about. The Nexus.
Nexus, yeah.
You remember when the Nexus invaded?
Yep.
And John Cena's in the ring, and they destroyed the ring.
Yep.
Like they destroyed the ring and everything around the ring, and Cena just kind of sat. They beat up Cena, but left him laying there. And Cena just kind of sat there and watched them just tear things apart and take over.
Yep.
That was impactful.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, when you talk, I think there was an interview with
Titles and money would be NWO. Wrong, Anthony. Wrong again, pal. Because if you're talking titles, you're talking the Horsemen throughout the years. All right? Because the Horsemen had 4 guys, and then they had different versions all of it for 20 damn years. The NWO was in existence for what? 5-6 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then like I said, then they just started becoming, pairing up different,
Dangerous Alliance. Yes.
Dangerous Alliance. Yes.
Joe.
There's another.
There's another.
Yeah. Yep. And there are others. I'm sure there's a bunch of others. And like I said, define factions to family. If you go back further enough, you could talk about the Armstrongs.
Yeah.
Bullet Bob Armstrong, Brad Armstrong. Yeah. Like not really much a faction, but family wise, they were. They had a big family back then.
See, I think that'd be a debate for wrestling families, right? Because you have like the Armstrongs, you have the Von Erichs, you have the Harts. I mean, you can go on and on about that, but we're talking factions,
right?
So I mean, I'm gonna all right. You said Horseman, Anthony said NWO. It's very hard to disagree with either one of those. But I'm going to go with DX only because if it wasn't for Stone Cold and DX, the Monday Night Wars might have went the other way.
Yeah.
AJ made a point earlier that the NWO damn near killed the WWE. They were. People were tuning in for 18 damn months to watch Nitro, not watch Raw because of the NWO.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of DX and because of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mankind won the title and it kind of switched, the other direction.
The other thing too is I think what happened is like with WCW guys back then when it was new, the NWO was new, people would tune in, but eventually the egos got to everybody. Guys were booking themselves and stuff.
Thanks, Joe.
And eventually, it came to their demise. Yeah, if it wasn't for DX, if it wasn't for Austin, sure. But they kind of shot themselves in the foot. Also, when they started to make NWO Black and White, Wolfpack, that, because now, again, watered down version.
Right.
How good is it? Now all these different guys. Who's with who again? And then the turn on who, it's like all of a sudden.
I think that was the beginning of the end for the NWO working when they split it to the Wolfpack and the NWO.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because then you had like Sting and Luger on one side. You had all these established WCW guys.
Yeah,
who wouldn't stay with the Flairs and the Diamond Dallas Pages of the world, but instead they just decided to join the NWO. But one of them was on Black and White, and the other one was on Wolfpack, and it was confusing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, DX was doing their raunchy, crazy stuff during the Attitude Era.
Yep.
Stone Cold was kicking asses and taking names and causing mayhem on every Monday night.
Yep.
So I mean, when you come with greatest factions, like I said, it's hard for me to dispute that the Horsemen and the NWO were probably the two best ever. But I gotta throw DX in that conversation just because of what happened with the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, it's like this, like debating anything. When I did
Joe, Vince Russo, there's a lot of people. I'm sorry, Mark.
That's okay.
A lot of Joe's saying that for me, it was Vince Russo messing up WCW. Yeah, a lot of people think that, but the thing was, WCW was already in trouble before they hired Vince Russo to try to fix things, and he just made it worse.
Yeah.
Because they're too powerful, yes.
Right. And then, when you have all them guys, now, see, and that's the other thing. Vince rules the roost up there. Whatever it says goes. We're down there. I'm not doing that. I'm, okay, change it up. I'm going to do this instead. Everybody's booking themselves and what they want, putting themselves over. And in the end, that's just not good for business.
Right. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening in AEW. There's too many hands in the basket.
Yes.
You need one guy. You need one guy booking stuff and writing stuff and coming up with the storylines and things like that. You got like 6 guys all throwing, they sit in a room and a table and say, okay, what should we do next?
Mm-hmm.
And, so Cody's got an idea and Omega's got an idea and the Young Bucks have an idea and Jericho has an idea. And it's like,
Yeah, and not everybody's gonna agree with everybody. So then you debate, like we're doing debate. What if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do that? What if we change it up and do this instead? So yeah, I mean, debate is there's always going to be a debate about everything. But when I was down in Florida and I did a seminar with Eugene, and his question to all the guys was, what is the greatest match ever?
Right.
Now, guys were spewing out a lot of different, names and matches and whatnot all. Now, again, debatable. He said the greatest match ever is The Rock versus John Cena, Part 1. And the only reason for that is because it drew the most money ever. Now,
more than Hogan
the greatest match?
More than Hogan Rock?
Yes.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yep. So now the question is just because it drew the most doesn't mean it was the greatest match ever.
Right.
Maybe to a wrestler, no, but to the businessman who's ever running it, going, damn right, that was the greatest match ever. I made the most money.
Right.
And that's what promoters are there to do. Right. They want to make money. So that's why they make these matches, to help draw in money. They had a year to promote that match.
Right.
That's why it's so much money, because they had that year. They never promoted another year-long match. So, so the debate is, that's
Undertaker and Shawn 2, because Undertaker and Shawn won in WrestleMania 25. And then the next night on Raw, they basically said they're going to do it. They're going to do it again.
Right. But the thing is, it's just like, so that's the greatest match ever. Well, maybe not wrestling wise, it wasn't the greatest match ever. But when it came to money side, yes, that was, because it drew the most. So the debate is, what is the greatest match ever? Well, if you have to look into everything into perspective, what is it? Again, debating with, it's like anything. You can debate a lot of different matches. That's the greatest match, and they're all right because of what the scenarios. Maybe the wrestling was phenomenal. Maybe it made the most money. It had the most whatever. Again, is it you're wrong? No, it says that it's a opinion of somebody. And everybody has different opinions, which is what makes these debates great, because you can be right about something, and you may feel slated about something else, but again, you put everything together and it's like, well, it does make sense. So, we're all right. and
AJ says Mr. Perfect versus Bret the Hitman Hart. That was SummerSlam for the Intercontinental title, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The thing of the matter is with that debate, like any other debate, it depends how old you are.
Yeah.
Because if you're under 40, you're going to say that the greatest quarterback of all time, bar none, whatever, no matter what anybody says, is Tom Brady.
Right.
And if you're over 40, there's a better chance. There's still a chance you might say Tom Brady, but there's a better chance that you might say like somebody like Joe Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can say, oh, he played in a different time. And then the guy who likes Tom Brady says, Tom Brady never had Jerry Rice. And it goes on and on and on and on and on.
Right, exactly.
But with wrestling factions, Anthony earlier said that the Four Horsemen were old and boring. Okay? But he didn't live back then to see them in their prime, to see all those Ric Flair promos with the Horsemen and what being a horseman was all about.
When they would take somebody out, they would jump somebody in the parking lot, break somebody's arm or do something where they take them out.
They put you out.
Yes.
Okay. They didn't beat you in the ring. They beat you up.
Yes. Right. Yep. Yeah. And, and that's the stuff that's always good. Like you just, you didn't know what they were going to do. And again, back then you didn't have the sheets leaking out going, hey, this week coming up, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if I want to watch that. Happen. Right. You had no clue. That raw emotion.
Also, Anthony, Perfect versus Brett, you're wrong. Again, the greatest match of all time is the Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And I'll debate that all day. All you Undertaker fans out there want to throw Shawn Michaels in my face.
WrestleMania 3, that match was phenomenal. Yeah, you could, again, another debate of saying the greatest match. Absolutely. That match was unbelievably awesome.
Ooh, yeah.
Dig it. But
I'm 39, Joe says. I remember the Mongo Horseman years better than the Tully years. Right. And I get it. But the Mongo was I knew you. Please tell me you were trolling me when you said Mongo was the best horseman, because Mongo is by far the worst horseman ever. Even better. And people don't want to talk about Benoit, but he was even worse than Benoit. Sorry, the guy could not work.
See, and the thing is, like when the Horseman was the original Horseman, when they had the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, and it was a different era back then. They made guys tap out, they break their arms if they had to, so I mean, like that stuff there, that was more old school, and maybe it seemed boring to other people, but back then that was like, man, these guys are dominant, so you always want to watch to see what's going to happen next and who's going to step up to face them.
Macho Man was a great staller. I know where you live, that, right? I will come up in my shades and my bandana, and I'll show you how much of a staller the Macho Man was. I will channel my inner Macho Man. The one cool thing about the Macho Man was he was never really in a faction. He didn't need it.
No. Oh, no.
You can say, he was with the Hulk Hogan with the Mega Powers, but that's a tag team. That ain't a faction.
Right, yeah.
He wasn't in it. He didn't need it. He was the Macho Man. Oh, wait. Here comes the people saying, he was in the NWO, Alan. Yeah, right. But in the beginning, when he first came to WCW, like Hogan turned on him at Bash at the Beach, and that was the birth of the NWO. So at first, he was trying to fight the NWO, and then he was basically like, can't beat him, join him. Right.
Yep.
He had no choice then. He's like, all right, if I want to make money, I guess I better get with Hogan, and him and Hogan weren't the best of friends.
Yeah, right.
He didn't need the NWO. The NWO needed the Macho Man.
Right.
That's all I got to say about that. So, yeah, you said Four Horsemen. Anthony said NWO. Yeah, Joe, I just said it. He was black and white. I know. I get it. I know. But he didn't need it. He didn't need it. I don't count it. I don't count it at all. All right. Just like I acknowledged, I don't acknowledge the fact that the man has a rap album out there. You know what I mean? That doesn't exist. Okay. Yeah, but you guys mentioned, you said Horseman, Anthony said NWO. I said DX, but I said pre-show that if you look at the titles and where their careers went, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Evolution in that. With those other three, with Horsemen, NWO, and DX. I think the fourth one on that Mount Rushmore is Evolution.
Yeah.
Because you had Flair, Triple H, Batista, and Orton. And Flair was part of the Horsemen.
Yep.
And Triple H was part of DX.
Yes.
So those guys were part of two of the best ever factions. Put them in the same faction with the young Randy Orton and a young Batista. And and look where they went. They ended up being multi-time world champions.
Yep.
Evolution was amazing, my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to debate that because
that album was amazing. Be a Man, yes. Be a Man. Right. That's the one. That's the rap album. I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about it. The Shield for Honorable. Well, we talked. If you just joined us, so we did talk about the Shield. Mark did a lot, where the Shield was a very dominant group for a while. Yeah, and it really launched all three of those guys' careers. Moxley's doing great down there in AEW. Seth Rollins, multi-time world champion, and your current Universal champion is Roman Reigns. So,
oh yeah. Yeah, I mean,
a trio, not a faction. No, I would call them a faction. I would call them a faction. I would. Then when people mention the New Day, I would. That's debatable whether or not they're kind of like a trio or not, because they were tag team champions. It's like the Freebirds. You know, I would call the Freebirds a trio, or I'd call the Freebirds a faction. You could go either way with that, right, Mark? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's again it's everybody has their own opinion about what they think is right. You know, if you want to talk about trios or a faction, there's other ones you can that come into play. Like, the Shield didn't have a manager, but like the Triple Threat didn't really have a manager, but then if you take guys, say like Jimmy Hart, and he only had a couple guys. He had 2, 3. He had Honky. He had 3 or 4 guys. It's do you say one or the other? I mean, if you're talking about that, then you got to talk about Demolition in that later in the part, because they became 3. They became 3. So
right. I think I try to take trios out of the word faction. To me, I think you need at least 4. I think. But then, DX started with just Shawn, Triple H, and China.
Right.
So, they quickly added the Outlaws and X-Pac and whatever. But I'm just saying that, to me, factions and trios, you could debate that all day. Honorable mention, sure. Honorably mention the Freebirds. Honorably mention the Shield. Honorably mention New Day. Because, if you want to call them factions, be my guest.
If you talk about
Demolition, yes. Axe,
trio,
Smash, and Crush.
Yeah, if you talk about 3, then you also have to talk. Well, they were mainly a tag, but you can't ever forget the Midnight Express.
Right.
There used to be 3 of them at one point for a little bit. So, then you're kind of like you're really like debating what's what.
Right.
A lot of it also too is how much impact they had.
Right.
Like the Shield had a huge impact with just 3 guys.
So impact wise, you're talking the Shield, you're talking the NWO, you're talking the 4 Horsemen.
Yeah, you're right.
And maybe Evolution. And nowadays, I would stick the Undisputed Era in there only because they've been dominating NXT for like 3 years.
Right.
Oh, the Brood.
Yeah.
Now, see, that to me is a faction. Why? Because you had 5 members there. You didn't only have 3. You had 5. You had the Hardys, you had Edge and Christian, and you had Gangrel. So to me, yes, the Brood would make it a faction. Their impact, I don't think their impact was crazy, but they were fun to watch. I'm not going to take anything away.
Well, the Hardys kind of split up, and then it just turned into Gangrel and Edge and Christian. So
right.
It went down to 3. But
no, the Brood was cool. I mean, the Brood was cool. I just wouldn't call them a dominant faction because they weren't around for that long either.
Again, yeah, we're not doing a lot of dominant stuff. Like again, it depends how impactful.
Catch up, Anthony. We talked about the Nation of Domination. The Nation of Domination, yes, and I will. We should talk about them for a minute, to be honest with you, Mark, because we've been talking about all these other things.
Yeah,
the Nation of Domination had Ron Simmons, all right, who was the first African American heavyweight champion. He beat Ric Flair for that back in the day, and then you had The Rock. Look what he became.
You talking about when he won the title in '92? That would be Vader.
I'm sorry, against Vader. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Was that the NWA title or WCW title?
WCW
title, yeah. But he was the first African American world heavyweight champion.
Yep.
And then you had The Rock, and we all know him very well, right? You had D'Lo, you had Mark Henry, you had Charles White, who is the Godfather, who is Papa Shango, who is whatever you want to call him.
Right.
Anthony, that's not nice.
Hey, we're talking about factions. You know what a faction right before all that, I think, was? Remember Right to Censor?
Oh, yeah. See, that's
Stevie,
why we have these
Ivory, Stevie, Ivory, Godfather was part of that.
He was the good father. They made the Godfather into the good father.
Yeah.
And they made Val Venus wear a suit. I didn't like that. I didn't like what they did to Val Venus.
Yeah.
Mark, I call myself the Big Alboski because Val Venus used to call himself the Big Valboski.
Right.
And that's kind of where, because Val Venus was one of my favorites. I used to love Val Venus. I love the whole character, the whole thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wasn't in love with him like the ladies were.
Well,
I'm just saying,
if you were, that'd be your preference.
Work in the ring. He was very underrated.
Yeah.
The character was great. And I'd love to be a porn star, like be in the shape he was in, porn star character with the towel, and come out to "Hello, ladies." The entrance was always great. His promos were always funny. He'd get in the ring and he'd say, "Well, ladies," and then he would go on and say something about his penis. It was always funny to me.
Right? Yeah.
The Spirit Squad, is that a faction?
There was 5.
Thank you, David. I completely forgot about the Spirit Squad. And why should I? Because one of my favorite guys, Dolph Ziggler, was in that Spirit Squad.
Then we got to talk about the Mean Street Posse.
The Mean Street Posse. But here's the thing. Joe's like, deep breath. "Hello, ladies." Yes. I loved it, man. But the Spirit Squad, I didn't mention the Spirit Squad as a big time faction because the only one out of those guys that ever made it was Ziggler.
Yeah.
Ravens flock, Mark. How do you feel about Ravens flock?
That's true. That's right.
There's one. This is why we have these discussion, guys. Thank you for bringing these up. I appreciate it to the utmost. Yeah,
there's so many of them.
There's so many, but like you get talking about the big ones, and you forget Ravens flock and Spirit Squad, and the Good Father. He ruined it for me. I used to love it. I used to love when he was pimping hoes nationwide. Then they had to water it down. They had to get the PG version.
Yeah, right.
It's ridiculous. Joe, if you're loving this, subscribe, my brother. Subscribe to our channel, 2M1L, and you're going to get Spitting with Spitter with TJ Spitter, your boy. Then we're going to get Shooting the Shit with Alan Spitt. You're going to get Around the Turnbuckle at 6 o'clock on Saturdays and 6 o'clock on Sundays, usually with a guest, usually with the Professor Keith. Professor Keith was on location tonight for Parts Unknown, so I got my boy over here, Mean Mark Mest.
That's right. That's why I'm here.
And we decided to talk about the greatest wrestling factions of all time. And if we
Hell
ever
yeah.
get to talk again, Mark, which I love tonight, by the way, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Thank you. I love coming here. So anytime I can get on
Thanks,
here,
Joe.
I would love to do it, you know.
Thank you, everybody, for chiming in. Thank you, everybody that watches us every week. We do this to take your mind off of everything going on out there, and let's talk wrestling. It's always fun. You never know what we're going to talk about. If we don't have a guest, and I get in touch with Mark in time, and he's ready, God knows what we'll talk about next. Right?
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. As long as it's wrestling, we can talk all day long, all night long.
You know, we could talk ECW, we could talk WCW, we could talk the greatest intercontinental champion of all time. Who knows?
Yeah.
Greatest tag teams of all time, whatever. But tonight, did we settle the debate or not? Did we come up with like the top 4 or 5? I
think we have. I mean,
4 Horsemen, NWO, DX, Evolution, and Undisputed Era.
Yeah, I mean, they all were impactful. So, I mean, like again, like those are probably the top ones in that. Maybe not, you know, you can debate who's 1, 2, 3, but if you're going to talk about factions, those are always going to be talked about one way or another.
Yep, absolutely. Mark, what do you got going on that you want to let everybody know about?
Well, I mean, weather's getting nicer slowly, and hopefully we're getting through this pandemic. But, you know, got the school open, you know, training guys and girls. Anybody who wants to train, whatever, hit me up. Still doing TikTok, so look me up there. You know, my handle is MMM007 for everything, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You know, it's all that. But we're hoping to be taping some Outbreak stuff shortly, you know, to get Outbreak out there again. And we're hoping for live shows soon. I mean, we're only at 15%, but if we can get to 25 or even 50%, live shows could happen soon. So we're hoping that, you know, the governor and we'll start to lighten up a little bit, because I'm ready for some live shows. You know, don't get me wrong, I love the taping. I love what we do. I'm loving editing, producing shows and putting them all together. But to be out there, you know, to hear the crowd, the reactions of what's going on, that's the drug of professional wrestling. That's the magic of professional wrestling, is going out there, listening, the oohs, the ahs, the ups and downs, the yays, the boos.
I miss it.
It makes professional wrestling.
I'm not at liberty to say, but I'm not at liberty to promote this, but I will be attending live wrestling in the very near future with the Professor Keith. They haven't promoted the event yet, so I'm not at liberty to say where, but I can't wait. I cannot wait to be in the fans, watching wrestling again, socially distanced, wearing my mask, whatever I got to do to watch wrestling again, because I cannot wait to be at an event live.
It's been way too long, that's for sure. So, yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, we get that nudge to, like, you know, 25 or 50%.
Minnesota. I miss ROH shows in Minnesota. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Wow.
I miss everything. I miss local events. And I miss WWE stuff when they're in town. I miss it all, man.
Yeah. Hopefully one day soon. You know.
Sound like somebody committing bloody murder over there, man.
Yeah, little guy's not happy. He was outside playing, and they made him come in for a little bit. So it was getting cold.
Oh, no.
now he's not happy.
Well, we're gonna wrap this up, guys. If you watch this from the beginning, you saw that I did have a little thing there in the beginning, and I will play it one more time about not only the factions that we've just discussed, but also the passing of Marvelous Marvel and Hagler. Man, my thoughts go out. My thoughts and prayers go out to the family, to his family, to all his legions of fans. He was around during a time when boxing was so much more in its prime, and I can't begin to tell you about his fights with Sugar Ray Leonard, because I used to. My mom used to have HBO, and HBO would have boxing events versus pay-per-view nowadays. And one of the events they had was Sugar Ray versus Marvelous Marvin Hagler. What a fight! Both of those times, what a fight they had.
Yeah.
What a rivalry they had over the years for the middleweight division. But Marvelous Marvin Hagler will be missed, gone way too soon at age 60, at age 67. So again, rest in peace, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, up there in the ring in the sky. Say hello to Ali and some others for me, will you? And guys, tune in Wednesday night tune in Tuesday night for Home Team Sports. It's me, it's Shango, it's
Stop, buddy.
Anthony Joseph, and it's cousin Phil, and we're going to be talking sports. Heel Turn Harry's going to be joining us. Chris Vance going to be joining us. So we got a bigger panel on Tuesday, big time panel on Tuesday. We're going to have like 6 guys debating sports.
Ah, wow.
So it's going to be fun.
Sounds like
that. Tune in Wednesday night. My boy TJ Spitter is on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock live on this channel. Wednesday night at 8. And again, me and the professor will be back here on Saturday at 6 o'clock for Around the Turnbuckle. I'm the Big Alboski. He is Mean Mark Mest. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
it.
And we'll all see you next time on Around the Turnbuckle, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you ready? I said, are you